The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long, fiery shadows across the parched plains of Montana. Dust danced in the wind, carrying the scent of rain that had not yet come. The rancher, Colton Hayes, tugged his hat down lower against the glare as he rode back from the southern ridge. His horse, a strong chestnut stallion, snorted with fatigue, its hooves thudding softly against the dry earth. He'd spent the day mending fences and rounding up stray cattle. Nothing out of the ordinary. But as he neared the old well that marked the edge of his property, he saw something that froze him in the saddle. A woman, barefoot, half covered in dirt. Her dress torn, was crawling toward the well, her lips cracked, her eyes wild with desperation. She was whispering something he couldn't hear at first, her voice weak and trembling. Then, as he drew closer, he caught the words, "Please, help me, I'm begging you. Hurry up!" Colton leapt off his horse before it even stopped. He dropped to his knees beside her, his calloused hands gently lifting her head. She looked at him with glassy eyes, fear and relief battling in her gaze. "Who did this to you?" he asked, but she only shook her head, clutching at his shirt as if she feared he'd vanish. There was blood on her shoulder, a bullet graze, shallow but fresh. Someone had chased her, and whoever it was might still be close. Without hesitation, Colton scooped her into his arms and carried her to the horse. "Hang on, ma'am." "You're safe now," he murmured, his voice low but sure. The woman, weak and trembling, pressed her face against his chest as the horse galloped toward the ranch. When they reached the farmhouse, Colton kicked open the door and laid her on the couch near the fireplace. The dim orange light flickered over her face. She was young, no more than 25, with tangled hair and eyes full of pain. He quickly grabbed a basin of water and tore an old sheet into bandages. As he cleaned the wound, she winced and cried out softly. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're safe here." But even as he said it, Colton felt something uneasy settle in his gut, a sense that this woman's presence meant trouble. When she finally spoke, her voice was little more than a whisper. "They'll come for me." "They'll kill you too." Colton frowned. "Who?" he asked. "Who's coming?" But she just stared at the fire, trembling. "I saw something I shouldn't have," she said. "Out near the canyon. They buried something, or someone. I tried to run." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please don't send me away." Colton's jaw tightened. He wasn't a man to run from danger, but this was different. If what she said was true, someone out there had murdered a person and buried the evidence. And now, that secret had followed her to his doorstep. As night fell, thunder rolled in the distance. Colton loaded his rifle and barred the doors. "You'll stay here tonight," he told her. "I'll keep watch." The woman nodded weakly, her eyes fluttering shut as exhaustion took her. Colton sat by the window, watching the horizon for any sign of movement. The rain began to fall, slow at first, then heavy. Lightning flashed, illuminating the fields in bursts of white. Just past midnight, the wind carried a faint sound. Horses. Several of them. Colton's hand tightened on the rifle. He looked back at the sleeping woman, her face pale in the firelight, and something fierce stirred in him, a need to protect her, no matter what. Whoever was coming wasn't going to find her without a fight. And that was the moment the rancher decided he would do the unthinkable. The storm raged through the night, lightning splitting the sky as hooves thundered outside the ranch. Colton stood by the window, rifle raised, eyes scanning the darkness. He counted 3 riders, their silhouettes moving cautiously through the sheets of rain. Whoever they were organized. No drunken drifters or lost travelers. They were hunting, and he knew exactly who they were hunting for. He glanced toward the couch where the woman stirred in her sleep. He couldn't let them have her, not after what she'd endured. He moved quietly, placing his rifle on the table and grabbing his coat. Then, without a word, he walked to the barn and opened the back door. The wind howled, flinging rain into his face. He saddled his horse, grabbed his lantern, and returned inside. The woman woke with a start. "They're here, aren't they?" she whispered. Colton nodded. "We're leaving, now." She tried to stand, but her legs gave way. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms once again. "Hold on tight," he said, and kicked the door open. They galloped into the storm, the horse's hooves splashing through the mud, lightning illuminating the landscape in flashes. Behind them, shouts echoed. The riders had seen them. Bullets whistled through the rain. "Get down!" Colton shouted, leaning low over the saddle. He turned sharply toward the canyon trail, where the terrain was rough enough to lose their pursuers. The woman clung to him, her face buried against his chest, her sobs drowned out by the storm. After what felt like an eternity, they reached the canyon ridge. The rain had turned the ground slick, and the horse stumbled, nearly throwing them off. They dismounted, panting. "We can't go much farther," she said, shivering. Colton looked at her, then at the dark ravine below. He knew what had to be done. The men would search every inch of open land, but not the canyon. Not if he made them believe she was gone. He tore off his coat and wrapped it around her. "Whatever happens," he said, his voice steady, "you don't come out until sunrise." She looked at him, eyes wide. "What are you going to do?" He smiled faintly. "Something stupid, something they won't expect." Colton turned back toward the open plains. When the riders reached the ridge minutes later, they found his horse riderless near the edge, and a hat floating in the river below. They assumed the worst. The woman was dead, and the rancher had gone down trying to save her. Satisfied, they rode away into the storm. Hours later, as dawn broke, the woman crawled out from her hiding place beneath the rocks. The rain had stopped. The plains glowed gold again under the new sun. She looked down the ravine and saw movement. Colton, soaked and bruised but alive, climbing up slowly. She ran to him, tears streaming down her face. You're alive!" He smiled weakly. "Told you I'd do something stupid." She threw her arms around him, sobbing with relief. "Why would you risk your life for me?" she asked. He looked at her, his expression soft but steady. "Because sometimes," he said, "doing the unthinkable is the only thing worth doing." As the two stood there, silhouetted by the rising sun, the wind carried away the last echo of thunder. The danger had passed, but something else had begun. Something deeper, quieter, stronger than either of them expected. The woman found safety not just in his arms, but in his heart. And the rancher, who had long believed himself done with love and life, found a reason to keep fighting.